Hey, how are you doing? Great to have you here for this week's How to Be an Online Musician free workshop. As always, you can watch these sessions back later, so don't panic about taking notes. And if you're watching back, great to have you here. But also, if you're watching live, do say hello. It's great to start the week and for me to see who's here watching, which is fantastic. We'll start in a few minutes just to make sure everyone can get here. So maybe if you're watching back, fast forward a little bit. But in the meantime, if you're watching live, do say hello. Where are you watching from? How's your week been? Uh, it's so nice that things have got a little bit warmer, so I'm really glad for the change in temperature today. So fingers crossed that's going to be something that keeps going on because I'm so bored of the cold. But this week's session is going to be really fun and something I'm quite excited about. And that's on using broadcasting software. So some really cool reasons to why you should use it, some potentially really nice unexpected ways of using it. So it's yeah, I'm really looking forward to showcasing some of these fun stuff. I'm going to do a follow along and some tutorials for most of it. Great to have you here, St Andrew's Voices. Hi, nice to see you. Fingers crossed you've got a nice cup of tea or something a bit more refreshing with you. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on social media as well, or drop me an email, whatever works best for you. And do ask questions in the Q&A as we go along as well, or in the comments if you're watching back. It would be great to try and answer any problems and things you have. Out of curiosity for people watching, have you used broadcasting software before? Is it something that's completely new? That'd be really useful for me to know. And Daniel, great to have you here. Hope you're keeping well and not too cold. But brilliant. So we're just going to wait a couple of minutes, make sure there's some people not coming in too late, because I know we started bang on 7 o'clock, which is always nice to do. So we'll give it a couple of minutes. Neve, great to have you here. Hope you're keeping well. Also, if you're watching, what are you drinking as well? Are you on cups of tea, coffee, too late for coffee? I'm definitely trying to drink as much tea as possible. Brilliant. So broadcasting was completely new for you, Daniel. That's great to know. It's so much simpler than you think, which we're going to look into, so hopefully it's not going to be something too scary. Okay, fantastic. So what we might do is jump in now. We've got a couple of minutes. It's great to see that you're all here. And if you're watching back, or you join us late, you can always pass back and see what you've been. Drinking wine. Very jealous, Daniel. Very jealous. Okay, so today, as we mentioned, we're looking at the wrong button that I've pressed. We are looking at why musicians should use broadcasting software and how to use it. So as mentioned, this could be something that's completely new for you. It's going to be something that sounds potentially scary, but hopefully it's going to be a great way of really adding things to your live stream performances. And also potentially a way of really upping your game on Zoom. There's some really good useful ways of doing that. I'm loving how many of you are drinking wine. I'm for once being well behaved on a Monday and drinking a cup of tea. Okay, so moving forward, what actually is broadcasting software? It can sometimes also be known as live streaming software, which gets this live stream element into it. In essence, it is a computer program that allows you to create, mix, and produce a video feed. So that's something that you can do on your computer, and what happens is that video feed will then go out there. The technical term is that it encodes video to be live streamed or recorded. So it'll take all these inputs that you have from various things, and it'll encode it into a video that goes out into the world. In essence, it's going to let you connect to a streaming service. Whether that's a social media platform like YouTube or Facebook, you can send it to there, and that means you've got more control over what you're sending it rather than just being your webcam or your phone. Or you can send it to somewhere that's a specific platform. So for example, we mentioned Tides in the last session about being a platform for selling your online concert performances. You needed to use broadcasting software to use that. Potentially a really bad analogy, but one way of thinking about it is it's kind of like PowerPoint, but for video. So in essence, you're going to have a series of slides, or which in this case are called scenes, and they then go out to the world after you do sort of a presentation. So what is the presentation mode is in essence the video stream that you put out as live. So that might be a nice way of thinking about it, as I think it's a good way of getting your head around, and when we jump into it, hopefully that's going to make sense. So why on earth would you want to use something as crazy and sounding as this? For a start, it's going to increase your production quality. What you can create is in essence going to be something that looks like a TV program if you want to go that far. So you're going to have options of using multiple cameras if you want to. You can include logos, you can have graphics flying in. You can also have calls to action, so things on the screen saying buy my CD now, or it can flash up and tell them where they can buy it, or other things like that, like how to support. You have the option of something of interaction with something called widgets, which is a fun-sounding word, but in essence, this is something responsive that reacts to things that happen. I know it's quite a strange way of saying it, but say, for example, if you have a button that says donate and someone donates to you, that donation widget will then flash up and say that someone has donated. Equally, you could have people in your own chats on the screen as well. There's lots you can do around that. And as mentioned, it can basically look like a TV program. So if you ever looked at the proms or Wigmore Hall recitals and all these things and gone, oh, I wish I could do that, you 100% will be able to. And I honestly think that you can definitely make something that looks just as good, if not better than what Wigmore Hall have been doing. So that's the general why would you want to use it. On top of that, you can also include pre-recorded video, other graphics, other photos, 101 different things to really add and bring value. So what are your options for doing this and how much is it going to cost you? The good news is that these are all free. This is stuff that is completely open to the world. You can download it, you can use it. There's nothing you need to pay for. It's fantastic. And the two options you have, which are actually quite similar, are Open Broadcast Software and Streamlabs. And the good news is that we're going to be going through the pros and cons of each. And when we do the tutorial later, we're going to go through each one individually as well. So whichever one you choose, hopefully you've got something that means that you can see how to use it and you can follow along in your own time whenever you need. Okay, so which are you going to choose? Open Broadcast Software is in essence the original broadcasting software. This is the oldest one. It's also an open source program, so people are constantly adding to it. They're helping create mods and they're creating a whole support community around it. The CPU usage is low for your computer, which in human speak means that it's a lower workload for your computer. You're not going to need a fancy computer in order to use this. So if your computer is 10 years old, this is probably going to be the one for you. Because it's the original and what the Streamlabs is based on, this is going to receive updates regularly and get the new features first. So when it comes to talking about Zoom later, we're going to be talking about a virtual webcam. And Open Broadcast Software got this update first, and it's now in beta on Streamlabs. So this is something that you may want to take into account if you're thinking further ahead. You also have more control during the setup as well, which is quite useful. But it's not the prettiest interface, as you'll see later. It's simple, but it's definitely not something you want to spend all day looking at sometimes. Okay, so then Streamlabs. With Streamlabs, it's much easier to set up. It even comes with a walkthrough at the beginning, and if you want, you can just sign in with your social media and it will take care of all the stuff on the backside to make sure that you can connect to all your platforms. It has a better interface, so it's going to look nicer, but it's also going to be easier to use and more intuitive. There's plenty of extra features, so if you want, you can customize your themes within there. So you have sort of an overlay that makes it look really nice and pretty within a certain style. You can also have specific widgets that are created in Streamlabs as well. So you have these interactive elements on the screen. So that's really fantastic. But one of the downsides is that the CPU usage is more, so your computer's going to work a little harder. In essence, I would recommend Streamlabs, and if your computer then struggles, then switch over to the OBS one. So it's the very little difference between them. It's also down to personal preference, but I'd personally recommend this one if your computer's fine with it. Most computers nowadays should be fine, so don't worry if not. One other little thing to mention is live streaming on a Mac. So previous to lockdown, both OBS and Streamlabs did work on a Mac, but they weren't quite as functional as on a Windows device. So I personally use a program called Ecamm, which is what this is using right now, or Ecamm Live is the full name, which is a paid solution. The benefits of this are it's very simple to use. It's literally as simple as just like clicking on which camera you want to do and telling it where to go on YouTube, and it just does it all for you. It's very good for PDF presentations like this, so you can just flick through a PDF rather than having to create lots of different images. But one of the big benefits and the reason that I got it originally was that you could have guests call in as well. So you can send them a URL link and they will appear in your software as a camera input. And you can include them however you wish during that. So that's the reason why I use this. That's the disclaimer that I do pay for a live streaming software that isn't the ones we're going to go through, and they're the reasons why. The good news is that the previous two, OBS and Streamlabs, both work on a Mac really well now and have some of the features that I was missing at the beginning. So I can definitely recommend using those. Perfect. So we're now going to jump into, after 10 minutes, the crazy tutorial time. And this is what we're going to cover in 3 different little mini sessions. Okay. They're going to be the first little mini project, setting up a basic stream with 2 different camera angles. So in essence, how can you do a live stream where you can choose between camera 1 and camera 2? And with that, we're going to do something called creating scenes, which is going to be your bread and butter. How to add a camera, how to add a microphone, and then how to balance sound or adjust the sound if you need to. Then the next little bit we're going to do as the next step up is setting up an advanced stream. So we're going to have transitions between scenes. So again, going back to that PowerPoint analogy, the transition between slides, what it's going to look like. Adding a logo, adding text, having multiple cameras on screen at the same time, adding pre-recorded video, and adding a widget as well. And then finally, we're going to look at how you can do this to be a virtual camera, which means that whatever you do in your software, whatever video you create, will be what goes out on a Zoom video call. So we're going to cover all 3 of those. So definitely time to sort of, get your drink at the ready, whatever it is. And we'll jump straight in. So the first bit we need to know is, what the hell is an RTMP link? This is a word we're going to come across a lot, and it's very important for one specific reason, in that it's going to tell your video or stream output where to go. It's going to sound way more complicated than it actually is in reality, as it's in essence mail redirect, but all you're ever going to have to do at the extreme most is copy and paste 2 different things. So bear that in mind. It's not going to be that chaotic, but this is what we're going to then start to do. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we need to find an RTMP link and basically have this place where we're going to send our live stream. So because we are streaming on, or I'm streaming on YouTube, I can't do 2 things at once on there. We're going to do this for Facebook. So heading over to Facebook things. So bear that in mind. This would be going to be that page would be like where you want the live stream to. And we're going to go down. What we're going to do now, underneath create a post, find an RTMP link and basically have this is where you'll find the live option. So because we are streaming on, or I'm streaming on YouTube, I can't do 2 things at once on there. We're going to do this for Facebook when it decides to load with the internet. Heading over to Facebook things. So bear that in mind. May not be that page of like where you want the live these different options here. Use camera, which will be your normal. Go down. What we're going to do now, underneath create a stream key, and basically have this where you want is the live stream key option. So because we are streaming on, and in essence, these are the 2 YouTube. I can't do 2 things at once. Server URL, which is the RTM when it decides to load, and the stream key. Heading over to Facebook, is the one that's most important for us. So bear that in mind. Just may not be that page of like where you want these different options here. Use camera, which will be your normal. Go down. What we're going to do now, underneath create a stream key. Now what I'm going to do is OBS where you want like the stream key option. So because we are streaming on, and in essence, these are the 2 YouTube. I can't do 2 things at once. Server URL, which is the RTM when it decides to load, and the stream key. Heading over to Facebook. Not to worry about having a call come in there. So that is that page of like where you want these different options here. Use camera, which will be what we're going to do now, underneath create a stream key. Now what I'm going to do is OBS where you want like the stream key option. So because we are streaming, the first thing you're going to be these are the 2 big screen. I can't do 2 the black part is basically your presentation when it decides to load, and the stream key. What goes heading over to Facebook. Not to worry about having a call come in there. So that is that page of like where you want these different options. Oh, is there a sound issue? Use camera, and what I'm going to do now, underneath create a stream key. Now what I'm going to do is OBS where you want like the stream key option. So because we are streaming, the first thing you're going to be these are the 2 big screens. I can't do the black part is basically your presentation when it decides to load, and the stream key. What goes heading over to Facebook. Not to worry about having a call come in there. So that is that page of like where you want these different options. Oh, is there a sound issue? Use camera, and what I'm going to do now, underneath create a stream key. Now what I'm going to do like the stream key option. So because we are streaming, the first thing you're going to be these are the 2 big screens. I can't do the black part is basically your presentation when it decides to load, and the stream key. What goes heading over to Facebook. Not to worry about having a call come in there. So that is that page of like where you want these different options. Oh, is there a sound issue? Use camera, and what I'm going to do now, underneath create a stream key. Now what I'm going to do So fingers crossed there should only be one of me talking now. Do let me know if the sound issues are still there, or is it repeating back over and over again. Isn't technology wonderful? So fingers crossed those now, we're good to keep going, touch wood. So if you could let me know if there's an echo, or hopefully I've just fixed the problem. Touch wood. Perfect, we're all sorted. So that was something from Ecamm where I still had the screen share audio ticked. We're all sorted, we're happy. Right, let's go back to OBS as if nothing happened and we're all carrying on business as usual. So this is the screen that you'll be greeted with, as mentioned. You're going to have this big black screen here, which is what is going to be your video output. But the first thing we need to do is connect it to Facebook and tell it where to go. So remember that RTMP link that we clicked? That was important. So it was the stream key from there. We're going to hit settings. And up comes this pop-up here. The first thing we need to do is go to stream. And here's where you can choose your service. So where is it going to go? Is it Twitch? Is it YouTube? Is it Facebook Live? All these different places. Now, normally, if you say, for example, we're going to do custom, this is the server where we put that RTMP link, that URL that we mentioned before. But because we put Facebook, we don't need to copy that one. It's just the stream key. And then here is then where you would then paste that stream key. So that's basically telling your stream where it's going to go in a second. That's all you need to do. Fantastic. Right, we've now hit OK. That means we're connected. It's now time to make your scene. So what we need to do first, before adding any cameras, are create scenes. So think of this as your PowerPoint slide. You can switch between these. You can create your scenes to be whatever you want them to be. But for now, we're going to do a very simple one and just adding one scene with one camera. Okay. So on the bottom left, you have this little section here that says scenes. If you click the scene, that means you have it highlighted, and then you can choose to add sources. So this would be your video, your camera, anything you want to broadcast in effect. Under sources, if you hit the plus, I get all these options fly up here. So what we're then going to do is choose the video capture device for camera. So this is where you're going to add anything that is a camera as a video capture device. If we were to click on there, we can then choose anything in particular that we want to add. So in this case, I'm going to put webcam, just to make life easier. Click OK. And then we have this here. So this is now the next stage where you need to choose the camera you're going to do. So from device, you have all these different options. And I'm going to choose the FaceTime camera, so my computer doesn't explode with all the different things connected. And here you have the webcam and FaceTime cam coming up. So if I hit OK, we are there straight away. Now what you might notice is that this is now not filling the whole screen. So if this was to go out as a live stream, there'd be this huge black border all around the side. And the reasons for that is that this video input is at 720p. But if I go to settings and just have a look at the stream itself and the output, so under output, you have all these various different options. But for the video section, you can then choose the canvas, which is the resolution it's being outputted in. So in this case, we've got a 1080 stream. So obviously it's not going to fit. So what you can do by clicking on it, and when it's red, it's selected, is you can drag it around wherever you want. You can have it slightly off to the side where you can't see some certain parts of it. But what we want is for it to be resized to fit all of here. Now you can do this by like any sort of picture in any Word file or anything like that. You can grab the handles at the side and you can drag them to resize. But the much easier version is if you right click, go to transform and hit fit to screen, straight away it's going to fill the whole screen for you, and that's been a much easier way of doing things. That's a much simpler way of doing that. So I hope that's not been too much all in one, but that's basically how to connect your OBS to Facebook Live or to wherever you're wanting to stream out, and the first webcam that you're added. So as mentioned, we wanted to add 2 cameras in this first one. So what we want to do is create a second scene for our next camera. So this is going to be, I'm not entirely sure where to look when I'm talking at the moment. So this is going to be a second scene with a completely different camera that you can switch from one scene to the next whenever you want. So under scenes, we're going to hit the plus symbol, and we're going to have scene 2. So you can call this whatever you want. In this situation, I'm going to call it keyboard, and you'll see why in a second. So perfect. So you may have noticed that sources have disappeared, and we've now got a blank screen here. If I were to go back and hit scene, it's then going to switch over and we go back to the previous one with our source of a webcam. Heading back to the keyboard scene, we're going to hit plus symbol to add a video capture device. If we tap on that, we now have some options. So last time you remember we did create new and we made our own. You might notice we now have add existing. So it's already saved the camera that we added before, including the name that we gave it. In this situation, we're going to add a second camera though. So we're now going to call this one keyboard camera. Okay. And I'm going to hit OK here. And again, we're back to this situation of choosing the camera. So we're going to hit device. And in this situation, I'm also now going to choose this one here to select a different camera. Whatever your camera names are will be completely different, depends what you plug into your computer. So in this case, it's the EOS webcam utility. Brilliant. So if I now hit this OK, it's now going to say it's having a moment and being slightly dysfunctional. So in this case, normally what I'd planned, and is on my other live streaming software, which is annoying, is that, can I remove this? In essence, there would be a top-down view of the keyboard, which is now deciding to not work. So this would, in this situation, be a top-down view from something else. So I'll try and fix that as we're going along, hopefully. Actually, what I can potentially do is a quick workaround. That's going to make things go mad. Okay, so I've moved that off, so we now have a different camera input with something else, and this would be whatever resolution is coming in. So whenever you wanted, you could switch between scene 1 to scene 2, and hopefully it then works. Okay, so next on my list is then adding an audio device. And you can see similar thing if you hit the plus symbol under sources. Then get the option of adding audio input capture. And this is where you can then change any device with an external microphone. And if you were to put that there, you then have an audio input capture along here as well. And in this situation, you can then go ahead and mute or unmute. You can change the balance with this slider here, and you can see it peaking as it goes along. And that's then one of the options you have for doing that. Okay, so any questions so far of what we've just covered with those few little things? Okay, so the next thing I need to show you is basically what then happens and how to make it go, in effect. So if we're going to switch back to this one so you can see my face, we have two different ways of presenting. We have the button here to say start streaming, which is going to send your stream out to Facebook, but isn't going to make it go live. You have to then wait for you to go onto Facebook and click live there. But you can either edit by clicking between these two different scenes, and that will then be what goes out to the world. Or you have the option of studio mode. So it's just on the right here, which I've just clicked. And so from here, you then have the option of doing, on the right-hand side is basically what is going out to the world. And on the left is what you're preparing or what you're getting ready to do. So you can change things, you can move them around, you can add various different things. And then when you're ready, you can tell it to transition across to the next side, and it's then going to have things in place. So if you're wanting to either change things on the fly or just make sure you've got your camera in the right place, or that, say, for example, your camera's connected to the computer properly and it's working, unlike this one deciding to be strange, this is then what you can do to make sure those things don't happen. Okay, so that's that so far. So we're just going to have a little mini second. Any questions that have cropped up, anything that sort of comes to mind, any specific things or queries, or is it just all sort of waiting for the next step so far? Hopefully that hasn't been as scary as it may have sounded to start off with. I know it's quite a lot to take in one session, but this is here for you to watch back whenever you want. Okay, so I'm glad that's hopefully relatively straightforward. What we're now going to do is basically the next setup. What can then happen next? Of how to make it more advanced. What can you do? How can you have transitions? All of this sort of thing. Okay. So in that case, we are going to jump back into OBS. So I'm just going to take studio mode off so we can play around a little bit more. So what we're now going to do is run through a few things. So transitions I mentioned briefly, also adding a logo, adding a screen share, some text, some widgets, anything else you particularly want to do. So we're going to start with transitions, which is the easy one, which in essence what happens when you change between one scene to the next scene. And you may have noticed in this situation it just does a direct cut. If you've been very eagle-eyed, on the right-hand side you can spot this little thing here that says Scene Transitions. And under there, if you click that, you can choose what transitions will apply to all of your different slides. So we've got cut and we've got fade. So if I choose fade for a second and I then switch scenes, you'll notice it does a slight fade in and out, which is much better. Also, if you wanted, you could then change the time in milliseconds. So we're going to say one that's a bit longer. Let's make it a fair bit longer and change between. It's then going to be a much slower fade in and out. So if you want, you can really play around to make sure that things are going to work as well for you as you want. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is adding a logo. So hopefully this is going to be a way of spicing things up. So within our scene, which is basically be our main one we're going to use, we're going to add some more sources. So for the logo, if we hit plus, and before we've just been adding video capture for making sure we've got a video input, but we want to add an image of our logo. So quite nicely, that's then called image. Clicking that, and we're going to give it a name so we know what it is later on. Hit logo. And then, similar to adding any attachments to emails or anything like that, all you need to do is browse to find where your file is. So quickly hitting browse, and then finding where I put everything for this little session. So I've then added my logo. And here we are. And as you may have noticed, this now is taking up the entire screen because it's a very big image. So like before, if you right click, you can then transform, and we can do fit to screen to start off with. So it's a bit easier to manage. And then taking the handles, we can then resize it as we want to be. And say, for example, put it in the bottom corner. So all of a sudden, our live stream's looking a little bit more professional because we've got some branding on there, which is much nicer. The next thing we're going to do is to add, show you how to screen share. So in a similar way as if you wanted to share a screen, I'm not going to do it fully because it will be one of those never-ending mirrors of everything. But if you wanted to share your screen in a similar way, if you add plus, you then have the option of display capture, and that's going to capture everything that is on your screen at that time. The other option is window capture, which will capture just one specific window. So say, for example, if you have your internet browser up and that's the only thing you want to show, it would just show your audience that, but it means that when you click off there and do other things behind the scenes, it's then not going to change. Okay. Then the other one was how to add text, video, widgets. So what we're going to do next is so you don't have to see my face in two different places. We're going to add a video, and we're going to do that in a different scene. So here we are, hitting plus, and we're now going to do Stoller Hall. So we've now made a new scene, hit the plus symbol, and we're now going to hit media source for video. I'm just going to type drone in. And so here is then similar thing, find the file that you want to do. There's also some additional options like looping your video, restarting playback when the source becomes active, which means that when you click on that scene and it flashes up, it's either going to go back to the beginning of that video or it's going to start where we stopped. So hitting browse quickly and then uploading a video. And already it's fitting the screen, that's perfect, there's nothing more we have to do. And then we have this video playing here. So it's currently a little bit lagging as my computer's trying to do 1,000,001 things at once, but hopefully that gives you a an idea of what's going on. Similarly, if we want the logo to be on it as well, if we hit the plus symbol, go back to image again, and because we'd already made that logo image, if we change to add existing, logo, and it's then on the screen. So again, we need to do the same thing of transform by right-clicking to get that menu to come up, fit to screen, and then resize it how we like. Again, you can take this to a whole new level if you want to start doing some crazy things in lessons as well. So say, for example, if we do another scene as well called lesson. And in this situation, we're going to try and show you what it could look like for if you're doing teaching. So again, hitting the plus symbol. Oh, sorry, so this is using Open Broadcast Software. OBS is the first one we're doing. So this is an OBS. So then hitting image in this case. And we're now going to do music. And hitting browse again so we can find an image to put in. And you're being very luckily treated to happy birthday. And in a similar situation, you can drag it out to make it bigger. But obviously we now have this huge blank space over here, which we can use for something else. So if we hit add again, we're now going to do the same thing as before as adding a video capture device. And we're going to choose the webcam. So add existing, webcam, and it's on the screen. So now you might notice that this is over the top of the picture we had underneath. If we look at the sources, you can see them in a certain order. And say, for example, if we want the music to be on top, if we click music and then choose this little upwards arrow, it's going to move it on top. So all of a sudden it's then disappeared, which is great. The camera's behind, but we can see all of this here. So if, say, for example, we were resizing it and drag it out, that's perfect. We're now the full size of the screen, but still hidden here. So what we can then do is either drag it across, which is fantastic, and then we can put yourself in the middle. But the other option, if you didn't want to do that, I'm just going to hide the music here for a second so you can see it properly. If you were wanting to crop rather than just try and cover up and move off to the side, if you hold down the Option key on a Mac or an Alt button on a Windows device, you can crop by holding that down and dragging in. And that's going to make it much easier for adding things along. So say, for example, I'm just going to click the little eye symbol to bring that back up. If you're wanting to do a lesson where your music's on the screen at the same time, you could have yourself talking and the music, but then if you want to, you can then flick back and have just you on the screen instead, so you can talk to your audience straight away, or your student, or whoever it is, and then you can, say, for example, play a video of music at the same time, and then you can go back to a lesson. So there's plenty you can do around there. Wonderful. So the last thing, or two things we're going to do are adding text. So if you were wanting to add a title to this and you didn't want to add an image, you have the option of hitting plus, hit text. I'm going to say buy CD. And then you have all the options here of writing whatever you want. You can choose your fonts, you can change the colors. There's so many different options to what you want to do. If you want an outline to it or a shadow, all those different things. And similarly as before, you can click and drag, you can resize, and you can put that wherever you want on the screen as well. Wonderful. Then the final thing we're going to do, which leads into next week's session, is adding a widget. So in essence, this was that interactive element. And what we're going to do in this case is use a widget from Ko-fi. So I mentioned before about having donations during your live stream or people finding ways of giving money to you. And what Ko-fi does is it offers you a widget which will not only show your where people can give you money, but also it can show your audience when someone has donated. You can choose that you can actually have people write a message that comes up on the screen so you can directly thank them for that. So if I was to, on Ko-fi on my homepage, hit stream alerts, and you can see kind of here what this would then look like. So all of a sudden you have your little bit at the bottom. When someone donates, it will then flash up with their name, a little juggling coffee cup, and then you can give a verbal and visible thank you to them, which is great. And you can customize this in whatever way you want. We're not going to worry about this bit for now, but just for what you would need is something called a browser source. And that is in here with the wonderful word copy, which is always your best friend. We're going to hit copy and then go back over to OBS. And within OBS, we need to then add this. So in the same way as it being a source, we're going to hit the plus, and it's then going to be browser. So then I'm going to put coffee in so we know what it is again. And then it's going to look a little bit strange here, but we're just going to basically, where it says URL, paste in that previous URL. And then as you can see, there's a little bit that says loading here. And this is in essence going to be the little bit that says donate. Now what I'm going to just do to show you what it then looks like when someone does donate is that if I flick back over to here, there should be a button that says test that I've just lost. Send test alert. So I'm going to quickly just click this and then flick back over to OBS. And you can see the little test has then come up on the live stream. So this will then be going out to your audience on YouTube, on Facebook, and they can see a visible thing. Coincidentally, that is also my coffee link if you're enjoying the stream and you wish to donate. Perfect. So that's the quick little fly through this. One thing I did want to mention is also on Tides, which we mentioned as well, how to send this out to Tides. So if I was to open up Tides, and when you're ready to broadcast to a studio, it will then say waiting for input, and you've got your server, which is the RTMP link, and your stream key. So exactly the same thing there. But as a final thing, we're also going to show you how to then get it to go to Facebook. Okay. So as we're now raring and ready to go with this incredibly professional and slick looking live stream, as you can see here, we're now going to hit start streaming. So what this doesn't do is start your live stream on Facebook. This only starts OBS sending the signal to, Facebook. So we have to hit that. It's then connecting. Brilliant. The only button next is stop streaming. For us to go back over to Facebook, you can see now in the bottom corner, it now has this little preview of what's happening and going on. And if I was to scroll up, we're then going to get a full big preview as to what it then is. Fantastic. And it's currently not letting me go live as I haven't given a title, so that button's currently missing. But that in essence is then what you would need to do that. Perfect. And then the final last step of this is basically how would you then do this for Zoom? How would you make this into something that goes on? So I'm just going to hit stop streaming. That stops that signal going. Just to make life nicer, I'm going to hit Stoller Hall so you're not having to look at my face again all the time. So what we now want is for our signal to go out to Zoom in case we're teaching, doing a workshop, a presentation, anything like that. And you may notice that under Start Streaming, we have Start Virtual Camera. So this is in essence going to make a virtual webcam, a pretend webcam that's going to go out to the world as an input on your computer you can use elsewhere. So we hit Start Virtual Camera. Perfect. Easy done. If you were to go to Zoom and to start your meeting, so you just saw this, the top down of my keyboard. It was working for a split second, I promise. So we're now going to go to the video here. And next to stop video, you have all these different options. And you'll see OBS Virtual Camera. If you were to click that, all of a sudden your Zoom video becomes whatever you are putting out in OBS. So say, for example, if you wanted to play your class of video of someone performing, this is a great way of doing it. Or if you want your face to be on the screen while you're giving a talk, like in this situation, that's a great way of doing it. And say, for example, if I were to flick back away from Zoom and just click Scene, you can now see that the Zoom meeting has turned to having my branding, my CDs, the coffee link, all of that's there. So that's how to then put that out onto Zoom. The other option as well for changing your webcam is by hitting Preferences or Settings if you're on a Windows device, and then going to Video, and there you can change your camera settings as well to be whichever input you would like. Perfect. So that is, now I can desperately try and get rid of Zoom. A very fast fly through into using OBS, Open Broadcast Software. Do you have any questions that have come of that? Things that you'd want to do in a live stream and don't know if it's possible to? Anything along those lines? That'd be fantastic to know about if you have any questions so far. I know it's quite a lot to have jumped in through already, which is, yeah, quite intense. I'm also definitely going to grab a cup of tea as well. It's been too long. Okay. So do let me know if you have any thoughts as well. Do you think this could be of use to you? Any benefits that you have? When you add the video, hold on. So yes, Chris, with the videos, you do have the option of playing the sound. I deliberately turned that off because it would also then play the system sound, so we get that weird echo. But you can choose to have that as part of it going out, or you could potentially have it so you can either have it faded and you talk over the top, you can have it completely muted, you can play around with it. So if I just go back to that video one here, it also helps if I screen share. If I go back to the video setting, what I'm going to do here is unmute it, but it's not going to affect this stream. And you can see the little bars here peaking, showing that there's sound happening at the moment. So that's showing you there's an active source on there, and that's going to be really useful for changing the sound, etc. And as I move the slider down, you can see the peaks are getting quieter and quieter and quieter. So yes, it would use a setting, the sound from the video as well, if you're wanting to do that. Okay. So, bear me 1 second. Brilliant. I'd certainly recommend having a play with the system, see what you think to it. What we're going to do next is go through the slightly nicer one, which is Streamlabs, which is a slightly simpler setup. But because Streamlabs is based on this, I thought it would be a great place to start and show what the basic version is. So what we're now going to do, I've just closed down that version as my computer is now getting very warm with multiple things happening. I'm now going to open up Streamlabs OBS, which hopefully is loading at some point in the next few seconds. So with Streamlabs, you have the option of logging in with your social media profiles, and that will connect them to it directly. What that does do is it makes it very simple to go live straight away. But the downside of that is that it's going to mean that it's harder to sort of change where your stream is going. So like doing the custom RTMP links for tides, that's then going to potentially be a slightly smaller issue later on. But I'm going to show you how to get around that and all the different benefits. I'm also just arguing with some of the technology, and hopefully that's then going to work in a second. Brilliant. So this is then going to hopefully show you what Streamlabs looks like. So as you may recognize some of these things already, we have a board at the top, which is going to be your blank bit which goes out to the world. You have source scenes, where you can choose between what scene is happening at a certain time. You have your sources section for adding sources, and you have your audio mixer along the side for adding different audio settings, balancing them, all that side of things. So again, the first thing we're going to do, this is one that is not logged in currently, just to show you kind of what this could look like, is by hitting the settings symbol, which is hidden down on the bottom left-hand side on this. And here you've then got the option of, again, very similarly, general, stream, output, all these different things. So by hitting stream, we get the option of where we're going to send it to, just like before. First, you need to choose streaming service or custom. And from choosing streaming service, you get Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live, Restream, all these places. And then similarly, the stream key is then where you paste that thing that you copied earlier from Facebook or from YouTube or wherever that would be. That's going to give you a clue as to where this is then going out. One thing that is worth mentioning if you wanted to use this for Zoom is that from here you also have to choose virtual webcam and then install virtual webcam. It's slightly more hidden away, so make sure you do that, and then to launch it, it's the same place as well. But I thought I'd leave that there just to show you that that's there. The other option for connecting your social media is that it will prompt you to log in at the very beginning of this, normally if it's the first time you've opened it, and it will run you through a whole walkthrough connecting your accounts. So I'm just going to do a very, very quick run into connecting to YouTube, which hopefully is then going to fly through this procedure. And you'll see in a second that things are going to change slightly. So we now have the option of, if we go back to the settings of the stream, you get to choose where you're logged into, where else is linked, and also the option of then what the output is, but that can be directly connected. The benefits of that is you can also, when you hit go live, it will directly go live to YouTube. Or in the bottom right, you now have a new little calendar logo, which is called Schedule Stream, and you can create all your live streaming events from Streamlabs. So you're not having to go into YouTube and do twice as much work. You can do it all from here if you want to. So very similar again. We have the options. You've got your scenes. You can add multiple scenes if you want to. Likewise for adding sources, it's exactly the same thing. You have your sources panel here. You can hit the plus symbol, and then it's going to look a little bit nicer. I told you it's a much prettier interface, which is a bit more simple. Your standard things are the ones you can spend most of the time looking at. So for example, video capture device. If we hit that and do add source, again, you get to change the name. We'll try keyboard one last time in case this camera has decided to wake up. And then when you choose device, moment of truth. Perfect. So this is what I was wanted to show you earlier. This could be a great use for when you're teaching. Oh, I do love it when a plan comes together. Right, so this is a top-down version of my keyboard right now. So my hands come in, and you can see them here. So hypothetically, what you could do if you wanted, if you're a pianist and a teacher, you could have a camera of yourself and a camera of your hands. And you can then see both at the same time when you're teaching or when you're performing. Now what you might notice is that the keyboard is currently upside down from where the camera is. So we also need to rearrange and flip the video. And that's a very similar procedure to before, and it's the same procedure for OBS. So this will work for all that time when I couldn't get it to work earlier. So by right-clicking, or left-click to highlight, and then right-clicking on the video, you then have the transform option, which is then for, like it was before, to fit the screen, all those options. What we're going to do is rotate 180 degrees. Everything's the right way around, and you can see my hands like I'm a proper pianist. Fantastic. So say, for example, if we decided to just quickly rename this by right-clicking and change it to lesson, what we could have by moving it over is, well, actually no, we'll keep it so you can see the whole keyboard, but at the same time we could add another source, another video capture device for another camera, add source, add a new source instead, because we need to have a new one. What's the name of it going to be? And this is then going to be webcam. Add source, choose device. And then from here, we're going to choose FaceTime webcam just to make it easier. Perfect. And as you can see, you can't see the keyboard at all because they're the same size. They're covering it up. If I were to drag and move them around, then they'll be in different places. But what we're going to do is just basically shrink it down a bit. So say, for example, while you're teaching, you can still have yourself in the corner, but at the same time, your students can still see your hands as you're playing. So hopefully this is a potential way of making things a bit more interesting. Also at the same time, another option would be, say, for example, if we're going to resize this, the example I wanted to show you earlier is, let's shrink that down a little bit since we have these both similar sizes. You can make it much neater and tidier than I'm currently doing. I'm just doing a quick run through this to sort of show you what it could look like. I'm going to add that image again of the music. So just because I'm aware I rushed over that quite quickly, I'll go back. Sources again, we're going to hit the plus symbol. I'm going to do image. You may notice that there's similar things like window capture, display capture, all these different things from before. We're going to do add source. We see we've got stream starting, which is one that I had before, so it could be that you have that before you go live. Add new source instead. Just going to type music in quickly. Add source, I'm going to browse. Don't worry if this is going really quickly, you can follow it through in your own time watching back if that's easy to do. And then choose the file that you want. So we're going to go back to that wonderful happy birthday diagram we found. And here we go. So it could be that for your lessons you then have the music on screen as well as a keyboard of you playing along, demonstrating at the same time, and your face talking to students. So this could be a really great way of you being able to communicate to people and showcase multiple things at the same time. So normally you probably wouldn't do something quite that intensive for a concert unless you're wanting people to sing along or something involved at the same time. That's certainly a tricky way of doing things. But it shows some of the flexibility as to what you can do during this as well. And then you've got, obviously, if I go back to this little scenes button here and I click stream starting, it'll flick back to what is then going to happen at the very beginning. So then another few little bits just to mention, there was the studio mode we mentioned before. That is hidden along this left-hand side down here. And you see these two little lines, that's studio mode. And if you were to click that, you get that same idea of having a live one on one side and one that is ready and raring to go to edit. So say, for example, I'm not happy with one of the positions of one of these cameras. I could be talking on one camera in one scene, or have, say, a sheet music up there. And quickly I could be editing, resizing, various bits on the go. None of this is going out live, but as soon as I hit transition, that's when it then goes on to the next scene. So that's a really good way potentially of doing some of that and really upping the game. I know that some of these have looked quite run and gun because I've been quickly doing them on the fly, but you can make some really nice, beautiful live streams. Christmas I did the Classical Music Live Digital Awards that had all these graphics flying in, all these different flashy things, videos, and we made a really nice professional looking live stream. And I think you can do that. So either if it is that you are having multiple cameras where you switch between one camera and another, that's really useful to do, or elements of engagement, or these little educational tools. Live streams. That's potentially a really good way of upping the quality of what you do. Just as one final thing, I want to show you sort of the next crazy level as to what you could do, which is with Streamlabs, it is much easier to add something called overlays, which really sort of spice up what your stream looks like. So we're going to flick back over to here, and one of the benefits of Streamlabs is you can save your scenes as well into a collection. So say, for example, if you have a teaching one and a performance one, you don't have to create all these every single time. You can quickly just switch over. So I'm just going to change over to something else to show you kind of what the crazy side would look like. This is definitely coming from the gaming world, so do take it with a pinch of salt. But you can find some of these overlays and graphics packages to look what you would like and to work for you. And hopefully it's going to be too long. Brilliant. So what you can see now is there's quite a lot going on all of a sudden. We have stream starting with a countdown on various bits. You have various ones we can change to, and it's lagging a little bit as my computer slows down. But there's custom animations when it changes to a different scene. You can customize all these different elements. You can have various things on the screen where it's people tipping or different cameras. There's so much you can do. So the potential for what this could then look like later on is huge. So that does show you some of it as well. Ones we can. One of the other benefits as well of Streamlabs over OBS is that you can get a Streamlabs desk app, or deck app, sorry. And what that means in essence is that you can control it from your phone. So what I'm just going to do is quickly fly back to the previous one we had our own scenes that we made and show what it looks like. So if you were to, so where that I've clicked onto potentially the wrong one, the session, bear with me for 1 second. There we go, and the screen share is now hopefully back. Brilliant. If we were, all the multitasking, always fun. So on Streamlabs, if we were to have this scene and wanted to control it, and you're going to look in the bottom corner where the circle is and it's me talking to you, on your phone you have the option of having all these different buttons. And as you may or may not be able to see, there's things like go live, start recording, and then you can choose whether you're on the start streaming screen or the lesson screen. So if I tap start streaming, it's then going to change over to the other one, and likewise lesson, it's then going to change back to the next scene. And one of the great benefits of this is that it means that you're not going to necessarily have to be running around and trying to click in the bottom corner for doing things. It means you can have it on your desk next to you, wherever you are, if your computer's somewhere else. And it's a much simpler way of hopefully getting by and making things an easy way of getting forward to control things. So that is your exceptionally quick fly through setting up both OBS and Streamlabs, which hopefully is something of benefit to you. I really think it's a great way of upping the quality of what you do. Do go back and have a look on the YouTube channel at the Classical Music Live Digital Awards to show you what some of the potential of it could be. But I think it's great both for your teaching, potentially for doing presentations and workshops, etc., or for really making your performances that extra level special. I think those little touches of like a logo or information on your next event All of that sort of thing is a really, really useful way of just upping the quality and making yourself stand out from the crowd, as well as giving a lot of extra value to your audience. If you've had a look at anything like Wigmore, they don't necessarily do, with respect to Wigmore, anything that special. It's just cutting from one camera to another camera. And at the beginning, there's a little title screen that says, please donate, and that sort of thing. And you can do all of that within here. You can have a page about donations at the beginning, about keeping in touch, your social media profiles. It's a great way of really adding quality and information where you need it. What's also really useful is you can have a session that says like taking a break back in 5 on the screen. So if you want to have an interval, that's a really nice way of doing it as well. But I hope that's all been of use. Please do let me know if you have any questions that have come up. I'd love to answer them if there's anything specific. I definitely recommend going back and watching it for the follow through when you're wanting to do things. The good news as well is this is that something the gaming community is years ahead of us on. So any problem you have, there will be a gamer that has not only had it, but will have gone away and made a YouTube tutorial on how to fix it. So I'd really recommend watching any YouTube tutorials to help get you going with them. But please do let me know if you've got any questions. It'd be great to hear them as to what they are. And also, if this session has been of use in any way, shape or form, it'd be really appreciated if you'd like to donate to help support the channel. Link for the coffee is in the description, or it's ko-fi.com/DavidTaylor_music. DavidTaylor_UK. I can't even get my own social medias right. But that'd be fantastic if you're wanting to support. But as always, these are free, and it'd be great as well if you can showcase that. Wonderful. So what type of file, I'll come to you in a second here, because I'll try a way of showing you the cameras and mics. What type of file type do you need to use for the title page or credits page? So a Word page wouldn't necessarily work because that's a document file. It has to be an image file. So for that, it would be a JPEG or a PNG. The benefits of it being a PNG, I'm just going to quickly fly back over to OBS, because we had that up there with our logo at the very beginning. So just bear me 1 second while it decides to wake up a little bit. Brilliant. So as you can see from when we did the Stoller Hall, this image here is see-through. You only have the bit that's there. So a PNG file saves transparency, which means you can have it overlay your things. If this was a JPEG, that background would be entirely white. I'd recommend PNGs if you're wanting things to be like a logo over the top of something with transparency, or it would be a JPEG for that. Wonderful. So a bit that's there back there. So in terms of using things for today's session, and this could be potentially where I'm being a little bit too clever for myself. So today's live stream, yes, it is working, fantastic. So it has been, there is a Canon M50 there, and then I've also got an iPad which is connected to the Mac, so I can talk to you while looking at the camera. And then there's a Canon RP, which is definite overkill for an over-the-top camera. And because my USB mic has currently died and gone to heaven, I'm using a Rode Shotgun mic, which is connected to the computer wirelessly, which is totally over the top for a setup, as well as in having a giant light as well to illuminate things. So this is admittedly a ridiculous setup for this, but I hope that gives you some context as to the using things. But what you can do is use your phone as a webcam. What I was just using there on my phone is an app called Epoch Cam, which is for iOS. If you're wanting the Android equivalent, that's called Droid Cam. And that's a great way not only for using a really nice high quality camera on your phone as a webcam input, but also for having something wireless that you can move around if you need it as well. Wonderful. And do you have any extra questions coming up? Any particular uses you'd be wanting to use this for that sprung to mind? It'd be fantastic to hear if there's anything specific coming from there. In regards to the cameras and equipment, I'd definitely recommend just getting going with what you've got. There's no need to have this. The only reason I was using the ridiculously nice Canon was because I have no other extra camera to stick up there, and as you saw, it decided to play around in setting it up as well. So you can really just use whatever webcams and inputs you have to get going, and you can certainly adapt on the fly as you need as well. Okay, well, if you don't have any more questions, I'm more than happy to wrap up, but equally if anything jumps to mind, as always, you can reach out on email, on social media or anything. If it has been of use this session, it'd be amazing if you feel like you wish to support on Ko-fi, which is hopefully coming up at the bottom of the screen right now. So if you'd like to help support the channel, that'd be really appreciated. But also, if it'd be great, you could tell other people about it. It'd be amazing that we really grow this into a weekly event. I think it'd be more the merrier. But fantastic. I'll leave it there if you're all good, and I'll see you next week. So what we'll be doing next week is going through Ko-fi and basically why it's a great resource for musicians in order to collect payments, whether that's one-off tips and donations, or for having a subscription service and a regular membership scheme where people can give to you on a monthly basis and they receive rewards off the back of it, and also potentially for selling your own products and services through a shop on there as well. It's a wonderful combination and a hybrid of like PayPal.me and Patreon all in the same place. And I think it's a really useful, powerful tool as a way of not just monetizing your content, but being a platform for you to monetize it. So hopefully that's of use. Today's gone on for a long time, so definitely take a big drink if you still have any left in your glass, and I hope the rest of your night goes well. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.